Turn that down. Hello. Once again, I'm finding myself completely forgetting about the fact that my glasses are dirty until I look straight forward at the lights that are on my desktop. My literal desktop. Not my figurative desktop. Sorry. My glasses are still blurry. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what I'm planning on doing. I was thinking about trying to extend the thing that I did yesterday where I had that grid pattern and play with that in slightly different spaces. I don't know. Where's my tracing pad? Like, instead of having it straight up vertical like on that sort of thing, instead maybe doing it at an angle. And playing with that sort of format, but still keeping it within a 8.5, 6x8 or whatever sort of deal. Or maybe not, I don't know. I also like the idea, hey, how's it going? Let me adjust this a little bit. I was messing with using this with a video call I had with my friends last night, and I repositioned stuff, so I got to readjust in general. Thanks for being patient. I also had a video call with another friend just before this, and we were playing Animal Crossing, and I got a little bit behind time and behind schedule. I might mess with this grid sort of looking deal, in which case I need to cut this down in size a little bit. Maybe I'll try sketching and see where that takes me, because that's how I ended up doing the thing yesterday. So line this up. What can I talk about? Today I have this idea for a series of shirts that are just of me wearing shirts, which is what this shirt is. It's a shirt of me wearing a shirt, and then the idea is that from there I just make a shirt of me wearing this shirt, and then you can go from there to have a shirt of me wearing that forthcoming shirt, and they are available for purchase as long as I don't have the next shirt. So if you do want this specific shirt, it'll be available for today. It's been available for like the last week, but if you want it, this specific one, and don't want a photo or a shirt of me wearing this shirt, of me wearing a shirt, then you got to get that today. I don't have a drafting background, kind of. I don't know. I went to school for graphic design, and there was some drafting elements, but not really. So let's try putting this on an angle and seeing whether or not I like sort of what it's starting to look like if I play with it a little. Trick to being productive is just sort of doing stuff. I was gonna be explicit, but I decided against it because I don't know. Just doing stuff when you don't want to do it is the main aspect of, or I don't know, just doing something is the easiest way for me to be productive. Or something that's also very helpful, finding something that you can work on or do when you don't have any other idea of what you want to do. I held it. I didn't say it. I didn't curse. I got very close. But I didn't. I have in the past created things where, and I still sort of function with it. You have a pretty simple concept or something you can return to and expand upon. I have a lot of difficulty with completing things, saying something that's completely done. So instead, I break it up into a bunch of little pieces. Is sort of how I find comfort, is not having everything at once, but having like a million tiny things. That way it's never done, but it's also never so overwhelming that you can't do it. So for a while, I was doing daily animated loops of starting with the same face and going from there. The same sort of basic starting point of a face more or less like one of these guys. It sort of came out of somebody was asking about possibly doing animations for live musical performances, and it's hard to have something hand drawn that has that live element, the capability to change and adjust on the fly, because that's part of the appeal, or one of the big appeals of live performances, especially musical, is that you can change things and react to what's happening in the space, which is hard to do with something that takes hours to do a couple seconds of. But the idea is having something modular. So if I have an animation that's 20 frames and is about 1 1/3 second, I can have that function as just this collection of other animations that have that similar time length, and you can repeat them indefinitely because they all start and end the same way. But it also means that this same frame is shared by this other animation that I made that's, let's say, a whole 4 seconds long, and it still starts and ends with the same thing. So you can switch in and out conceivably of all of this library of all these separate pieces. And so if you have a live performance and someone's soloing for a long time, you can have the same repeating element going over and over again, and then something switches, you can just pull in one of these more active, shorter form animations, and it complements the performance, and the performance complements the animation, and it's a shared experience. They both give to one another. What is it? I can't. It's a symbiotic relationship. Like, anyway, they add to each other. But that ended up not exactly happening. But it existed in a different space, and I really like modular things that you can have this element and it can be replaced by this element, and it still fits within this larger space. And there's a million different ways that you can, well, not a million, but a good number of ways that you can I wouldn't want to mess with the frame rate just because I sort of have a smooth thing to it. But for people I didn't look too much into the specifics of it. This just was a concept that, from what I know about live video production for like VJing and stuff, that people pull in and switch out videos. But if you have this piece and you switch it out for that piece, and you have this other collection of similar but not the same pieces, you can switch them out and there's so many different ways to combine it and personalize it, but still be within this structure, which is what I do with. It's a very literal translation to this thing. So yesterday, what I worked on was these faces being in a modular sort of space. Where is it at? Come on, here we go. This guy. Having a grid system going around in it and just creating these faces. A couple days before that, I had this guy, which was trying to work within a circle. But I like this grid system because it has a little bit of a... It's more structured, has a stronger sense of organization. The circle one was based off of this, which is not as clear of a thing. Circles are harder to work with in general. Hello, Arte Maniamus. That's based off of this guy. So now, instead of, I'm going to try today, instead of working with it on a grid system that's parallel to the orientation of the format, I want to mess with it being at an angle. And I might mess with... Okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace this grid system onto a piece of tracing paper and use it as an angled bit that I can change what the relationship is between the sort of more vertical and the more horizontal lines. So this is just a 1x1 grid pattern. So I'm going to, where's my ruler? Here we go. Just follow these lines on an angle. And see about both playing into this grid form, but also pushing away from it a little bit. I might as well do this with a pen, so it's a little bit easier to see both for me and for you, the viewer. Just on a grid. I do have some, I've got like a cutting mat that has a 1x1 inch grid that goes across the entirety of it, but that's in the other room, and this is here, so that's why I'm using this. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just pretty good. Maybe I end up not going through with this as a full plan, but since I don't have any sort of concept for what I'm doing today. Starting off with a grid is an easy structural thing to do. And this way I can also try to break from as literal of the Blockheads sort of grid guys. Let's just that up. Get these last few lines. Bonjour. That's as good of a French accent as I can do. What I've sort of learned or made my assumption of as far as what makes for an accurate or a good accent, I think it's more accurate the less pronounced you are with your words. Like, the less effort you put into separating out syllables with a general understanding of what the language is. So, like, part of the way to identify someone speaking a non-native language is that they struggle through it. Hello, Ryan. And so if you hear someone going very slowly with simple words and enunciating very clearly, it doesn't seem like an authentic accent, because nobody really speaks that way as naturalistically. Whereas if you're just trying to be a little bit looser with everything, then you get a little bit more of a accurate feeling. So even with that, like say an accurate feeling, just odds and ends of things. But like when I've tried speaking Spanish at different times, I usually have a better sound. I don't know if I want to do this angle necessarily. Let's go even more extreme with it. This may or may not be something I like. But trying to do a Spanish accent. Pan de jamon. I know some people who make ham bread because they're Venezuelan. You say pan de jamon, it sounds a little bit more naturalistic because you're not separating out your words. You're just sort of being lazy about talking. And that's how most people are. For the Australian accent, I know that some people say that part of it came out of folks trying not to let bugs into their mouth when they speak. So you like avoid opening your mouth as much as possible. I don't know how accurate that is, both to the sound and the history of the accent, but it's an interesting way to think about how people speak. Typically, people aren't trying to enunciate so clearly. They're just trying to communicate. Gracias. I know how to say ham bread. But like, I grew up around the southern United States, and my immediate family and most of the people I was around didn't have strong southern accents. There were some folks in the mix, but I was in North Carolina, and a lot of people up north and a lot of people down south would be able to identify it, that there are different kinds of southern accents. And North Carolina, you got a big difference between, like, if you grew up in Appalachia or you grew up in, like, Charlotte or something, and what those accents sound like. And there's a hierarchy of those accents within those communities as to what's considered more proper or acceptable or to be celebrated. But a lot of North Carolinian accents are like a little bit softer, a little bit more feminine at times, not quite as harsh, depending on where you are. And like my favorite North Carolinian accent that I ever hear in any sort of pop cultural sort of thing is Zach Galifianakis when he's doing a character. Because a North Carolinian accent, you sort of pull back a little bit, and it's not too strong most of the time. Well, there are people I know who have a very strong North Carolinian accent, but I can't do any really other southern accents because they all sound twangy and unreasonable. It is a different southern in South Texas. I was talking to, I forget where geographically in Texas Austin is, but my friend grew up in Austin, but his family is like a little bit older Texan. And then I have another friend who grew up closer to like the south side of North Carolina, north side of South Carolina, but a little bit more rural. I like North Carolina accents. There's a guy who, he's no longer at the studio space that I have, but he's got a strong central North Carolinian accent. He also is the only person I know around here who chews tobacco. North Carolina, lots of tobacco in North Carolina. I remember thinking it was funny at a certain age, the North Carolina State Fair. I was outside of Asheville, which is not a particularly rural area, but my mom's mom, her family has like been in Asheville area for a long time, and you get to hear some stronger accents in that area if you're going around. But I forget what I was going on. Oh, the state fair. There was like a children's tobacco growing contest, and that struck me as odd. That was when we moved from, I lived in South Carolina for a bit near Charleston, and there's a slower southern accent there, depending. Okay, I already poured this out. And then Georgia, I was in Atlanta, and Atlanta has a much different southern accent than if you're in like more rural Georgia. Atlanta accent is different. Has a lot more of African American vernacular English thrown into it because it's very much a black city. I enjoyed Atlanta a lot. That sounds like I'm saying it conditionally. That's not at all what I was trying to portray. Just I always feel weird describing a city by an ethnic group or this is going bad. Atlanta's a nice place. I still have a lot of friends who live there. Feel bad for Georgia in general right now with their issues with COVID and denying bits of it. So I'll try this out and see if I like this more angled look to it, but I'm guessing that I'm not going to because it's just going to look a bit distorted. Yeah, I guess so. I think there was some FFA stuff. The main group I remember from being in North Carolina that did not stick around as much, and I don't think there's any. There might be, depending on where you're at. I'm in Jersey now, but from North Carolina moved to Louisville, Kentucky, also experiencing issues right now. But FCA, I don't think there was, or it was not nearly as significant an organization. The Fellowship of Christian Athletes was not as big in the metropolitan area of Louisville at my magnet high school as it was at the Buncombe County Middle School. I had a friend who tried to grow the largest pumpkin in the state and did a very good job. He beat the previous year's record by a bit. Just a giant pumpkin that you can't really do anything with, because in order to grow it that large, that was in North Carolina. He was trying to grow the biggest pumpkin in the state for the state fair, which sounds super folksy, but it's a big pumpkin. I remember it being like 100 pounds plus, but I also was smaller at the time, so I'm not sure. But in order to grow a pumpkin that size, you have to make sure it has no opposition from anything around it, so you're more likely to use pesticides and such. I don't know what the "from China" is in reference to. But to grow a pumpkin of that size, you have to put pesticides and stuff around it. He did not win the contest, but he did beat out the previous year's record. But that year, I guess, pumpkins just were growing big. But with all the pesticides and stuff, you can't really eat it. It's not good for eating. I don't know what phi is reference to. Sorry, I tried to learn some Chinese at some point, but I was doing it on Duolingo, and I just was treating it as a matching. No, you don't have to apologize. I just was trying to figure out what you were referencing, what you were talking about. And there's a good chance that I could have said something about being in China or something. The Lunar Moon Harvest Festival is very soon. That's on Thursday. You can get your moon cake. I like the moon cakes that I've had, but I'm not big on egg yolk in general. This might be interesting. What is this? I'll try it out. Should I still keep it within this sort of grid there? I don't know. It's bad to eat pumpkin that's been grown super big from my awareness of it. But tobacco has a strong influence on the history of North Carolinian culture. You can drive by fields and fields of just lots of tobacco, but it was an early cash crop in the history of the United States. So it makes sense that one of the original colonies I'll go ahead and zoom out again. I just don't like having my phone in the bit. might have tried to make a jack-o'-lantern. I forget. I don't know if I haven't kept up with him super well in the years since moving away from North Carolina. That was when my family moved away when I was in middle school. That's a transitional time for your sense of identity. I moved to Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville's distinct too, because it's like a mix of things. Kentucky itself has a sort of border state history and is a mixture of like rebellion and some other bits. Geographically, Louisville is on the north end of Kentucky. It's right on the cusp of being in Indiana. It's the largest city in Kentucky. Has a metropolitan population of about 1 million. That's probably gone up a bit. They've brought in some more job opportunities, some Amazon, and it's a big UPS hub. A lot of overnight packages go through Louisville. So it's like northern, southern, not. It's in a state that's historically pretty conservative, but it's a more liberal section of that. Decent number of immigrants who have come to the Louisville area. Part of that's because the University of Louisville is there, and it has a decent engineering and medical program. But it's like northern south. Oh, I'm glad. That's nice. If you want to watch, if you're ever taking a break and looking for something like this, I've been uploading the live videos. I am recording, right? Yep, I'm recording. You can watch them on YouTube in full. Yeah, I'll share the final result. I might also I'm realizing different ways to showcase these sorts of deals. And one way is since for the most part, this camera is pretty fixed, I can do a time lapse, and it looks better than when I try to do it from when I did live from my phone, because my phone isn't quite as steady or consistent, and saving it from a live doesn't work as well because usually the live version is compressed pretty harshly when it's there. But yeah, you can look at, if you search like TraceLoops on YouTube, it should pop up. And every now and again I'll try to post links to those bits just because it's a way to have a little bit more control and a little bit more agency over what it is. You won't be able to interact, and the live videos don't have the comments on there. So you might just hear me say something in reaction to something, and it seems out of place, but it's because it was in response to a comment or something. But Louisville's like I am not married, but I do have a girlfriend. This year, it's a weirder year because for my age, it's the time that my dad had me, and my mom was slightly a year older than where I'm at, but I have an older sister, and so my parents were already thanks, have a great day yourself. Okay, that's not your name, but sharpen your claws. Hope you're feeling more relaxed. Glad to have been able to make you feel nicer in that way. But my parents were right about my age. Well, they were already parents, but they were about my age when they had me, and so it's a weird sense of time, but their parents were even younger when they had their first children. And so, all in all, just different cultural expectations as time goes on. Do you speak Chinese? Is that why you were asking about it? I learned enough to say I eat food, and that's most of what I remember. That's most of what I remember from Chinese. Which is Wo Chur Fan, which is probably terrible sounding accent wise. Okay, you just thought you heard some Chinese. Alright. Well, if anyone does speak Chinese who's watching, you can critique my accent, my pronunciation of I eat rice, or I eat meal, or I eat food. Let's have one going this way. That's a wide guy. I also know people who are my age who have kids, people I went to college with, or people I went to high school with, just different pathways. Different ways that people go with their lives. I tend to know more people who accelerate onto their family sort of planning and living in life that are in smaller towns where I've lived. Most of the people I know who are in the New York area are much more committed to a career sort of pathway. It's also much more difficult to have a kid in a more urban area because it's expensive to have kids, and it's expensive enough to just provide for yourself in this sort of space. Here's a little factoid about Louisville being a weirder spot. I went to a high school that was a magnet high school, so it like specialized in a few different subjects. So there was like the youth performing arts, so like plays and musicians and or band and such production. Then there was also math, science, technology, so math class, engineering sorts of things. And then artwork, visual arts, which was not the magnet I was in. I was in the least committal, the high school university, which was loosely considered like it's a college prep thing, but that just means you are at school. But so it's a mixture of things, and there's some famous alumni from that school, including Mitch McConnell and the lead singer of the Pussycat Dolls, the original host of Trading Spaces, Paige, and Pee Wee Reese. And then a variety of some other folks that I always forget, but it's just weird having Mitch McConnell and Nicole. I always forget how to say her last name, but it's like Swiss. But she was the lead singer of the Pussycat Dolls. Also has done some voice acting things here and there. I think she's originally Hawaiian, not a Kentuckian, but she was in Moana, I think, is the mom. So you get a weird mix of what Louisville and my high school was sort of producing. So there's a lot of like conservative elements. There's also a strong Catholic culture in Louisville. And Louisville is, I believe, named after French king. There's a lot of fleur-de-lis everywhere. It's an interesting place. And I was supposed to go back there earlier this year, for my sister's wedding, but that didn't happen. As a safety thing. This one just keep as is. Oh, I hope your back feels better. I still get some pain here and there depending on how long I'm drawing or working on something, but in this sort of setup, which I was using for a while earlier this year, once I angled this up a little bit, it helped a lot. Also taking breaks, which can be hard to do sometimes when you're working, but it makes stuff easier and feel nicer in the long run. I haven't done any just single. Oh wait, first one right there. Where's the 2 guy? I haven't done a 2 guy in this. I can push it this way. Structure makes it easier to work for me a lot of the time, having some sort of format. If I start into something and it's just completely open, it's a lot harder for me to work because it's a bit intimidating. Especially if I'm trying to work on the daily. It becomes something of a task to figure out what to do. Well, let's have a tall dude looking off the side. This tracing paper tends to hold on to, this is a little bit different than the stuff I bought in bulk. This tracing paper holds on to the oil from my fingers more, so it's hard to see probably. There's some instances where the oil from my from my fingerprints holds on the surface, and then when I paint over it, the ink separates out from it. Can make it a double guy. Let's make a... Oh, I haven't done that angle out guy. Have the nose go on this outside of the fold. I want the curve. This is the last space. I can do a full zigzag. Which direction do I want it to be looking? This way. I can't read Arabic. But thanks for participating, PUBG Pat. Hello, Universal and Fedorzima. A lot of fingerprint stuff right here. I have to clean this up digitally. More oil over there from my fingertips. 29 20. Okay, so should have also have that saved. Ooh, yeah. Okay. So my display capture saved from last time, which means that it shouldn't be giant when I turn it on. So I'm going to scan this. Show you the result. We'll do 1200 and make this black and white. Scan that. All right, thank you. Let's scan, and here's the grid. In a second, I'll post up the outline, and then you can watch me fill it in digitally. Stop sliding. Because filling in those solid bits. Okay, so that's the old image. Let's switch this out with grid. Okay. So there's the scanned version. No editing done to it. And now, okay, I gotta turn these off. Talking too much. Hasn't. Crop. Window. Okay. Now you get to watch me. Don't save that. Don't need to save that now. Now let's open up this guy. Darken it a fair amount. I'll leave that for the moment. No cropping out. Yep. What happened there? I might need to scan this again. Oh, it's probably when I put my computer on it. Okay. So I need to scan this again because there's a weird element to it. But because I think when I put my computer down, it pressed it slightly closer. And so when I scanned it at a higher resolution, that affected. Well, let me turn off display capture for the moment. you won't notice it in the version that's there, but there's a slight. So it seems to have fixed it. Okay, so if you're looking at this guy, I don't know if I can get it large enough to where you can see it, but there's this weird little spot here, and I think that's from when I was scanning and put my computer on top of the scanner. It smushed stuff down a little bit closer, and there's that weird little edge there, which doesn't seem to be in this second scan. So let's darken this so that all the black is actually black. It's on a second layer in case there are issues. Now we're just filling stuff in. Okay, where's the... Okay, that was the break. You can probably hear my fan running. Okay. These are sections where there was ink on my, or not ink on my finger, there was I touched the paper a bunch with my finger, held it down, and the oil from my fingers prevented the ink from settling on the paper. It adds to the textural feeling of it, but it can also sometimes be an issue. Give it a second, and let's turn off the display capture. Switch out this image. And there you go. See if I can get a side by side. Other direction. Now let's zoom out again. Fun times. Anyway. Wait, let me... Yeah. Wrong thing to grab. Let's switch these two sides. So, yeah. Here's that version and that version. Thank you. That's nice. Not too much more to say on This stuff just was messing with the grid sort of thing that I did yesterday, but changing the angle of it to be slightly different. I could have just angled one from this right angle grid to being, I don't know, this is probably like 130? I don't know. Here, I'll turn that off. Slightly more rigid grid, slightly angled grid, but still 1 inch. I haven't been selling posters. I do have some prints that I have that I haven't sold any in a while, so I need to refine them. I might sell posters at some point. I need to see what the price point is and how it goes. Right now I'm focused on shirts just because I like shirts. I don't know. I'll look at posters of different sizes and what they would look like and what the cost effectiveness of it all is. But yeah. Any questions or anything? Let's see, it's Tuesday. Starting on Friday, I'm going to be removing designs from my store just because it becomes super busy and filled if I am doing this daily and producing designs, and then so it's every 2 weeks I'm planning on phasing out old designs and replacing them with new ones. So if there are any designs from 2 weeks ago, which is, what's the date that I started this? Oops.com/store. Designs from the 17th. Those will start being phased out on Friday, and I'll post about that as well. So if there are any that you're particularly drawn to from the 17th, where there are 3 drawings from that moment, get those while you still can. And that's the plan, though, is to cycle through and make it so there's some sense of urgency in maybe purchasing designs, but you have approximately 2 weeks is what the plan is, and I'll see how that works and doesn't work. Also, I'm going to be increasing the price of shirts by $1. I didn't realize how much was lost in the fees of things. I'm not making that much per shirt, but the price point will start at $23 US, and that's for most of the shirts, unless you're getting into the, I think, triple XL. Then it's a couple dollars more just because the shirt itself costs more. But thank you for watching. I'll upload this to YouTube. You can look at stuff there. You can continue to follow things here on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, cool. You have a little bit more control and you're missing out on any of the comments that are over there. But maybe you enjoy trying to treat it as a mystery. What'd the person say? Why is he talking about Chinese? I'll give it like another minute. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, if you're international, I can ship to you, but I have to do it on like a individual basis because I have a lot of things in my web store that I personally have physically, and the shipping costs for those jump up much higher, where it's like twice up on that. So like if you're trying to buy something, it's like a minimum of $15 shipping as opposed to like $3 if it's domestic within the US. But if you message me, I can work out stuff with you. So you can either message me on Instagram or email me at TraceLoops@traceloops.com, and I can work with you to See, depending on some of the shirts that I personally have in stock, the shipping costs are much higher than if I have things printed remotely and they're shipped that way, because the company that I've been working with has some international printing facilities, which means that they can just send the file over and have it produced there, and there's not nearly the same cost for shipping within like the EU, or I don't know about Asia, what the shipping issues are there. I've only worked with someone in Canada, and it's like $2 more. But any other questions, concerns? Otherwise, I'm gonna jump off. Thanks for watching. This will be posted up soon, where you can buy a shirt with it, and be available for about 2 weeks. So, thanks. I'm gonna click save and finish here, which means that it'll take a second. But goodbye. Thanks for watching.